All right, so there's been a lot of debate over whether there is indeed a silent majority of voters who will probably end up carrying Trump back into the White House in 2020. And I want to make sure that I'm making this clear. When I go out in the street, I don't really know if I can see that silent majority. The signs in my county are almost all Biden signs. I have seen a few Trump signs here or there, but I live in a very Democratic county. There aren't a ton of signs, period. But if you're going to see one, it's probably for Joe Biden. And I had the same experience in 2016 when Hillary was running, especially in my neighborhood, which is extremely Democratic. You would only see Hillary signs. You didn't see any Trump signs whatsoever. And yet, the state of Ohio, where I live, was carried by Trump by the largest margin of any presidential candidate of either party since 1988. So, if you're going to ask my personal opinion about my state, I don't think it's very easy for Biden to win. He's going to have to dramatically increase his turnout in counties like mine, where there are many potential Democratic voters, but you have to get them motivated. It's really this isn't necessarily about the message and about the person and about their policies. It is about being able to motivate people to go out and vote. And I just feel that, and I'm sure I'm not the only person. When I see Donald Trump go and do an appearance, I see that he's trying to motivate people. Okay, you might not agree with the motivation, you might not agree with him, you might think he's a despicable person. You can tell he's really trying and that it's something that he has a knack for, and that's why he won in 2016. It has nothing to do with any sort of foul play or cheating or anything. He was able to get people to turn out in droves to vote for him, and I think he can do it again. And then when I hear people like Joe Biden, when I see appearances by him, I just have to say no. I'm not sure he's really motivated. I think he's uh, look. I think that with the right situation, he would have loved to be president. He would have been overjoyed. He ran for president 2 times before this time, and certainly he had some sort of motivation to throw his hat in this time. Maybe it was in order to prove something to the world, but he's not motivated, and his voters aren't. And you scarcely ever hear someone gush about the real tangible reasons that you should vote for Joe Biden, whether it's based in policy or it's based in who he is, except if it's somebody who's transparently begging for attention, like Stacey Abrams or Kamala Harris, who were jockeying for position to be the VP pick. So I'll tell you what, there are echoes of other elections that have happened before that show exactly what type of election we can most compare this to. This is from 1972.
Atlanta, Georgia, and the
So this is the Nixon campaign in 1972. You can see it's so traditional. You see an old style marching band with the majorette and everything, which obviously it's not unique to Nixon and conservatives, but it is about cut and dry, regular as you can get, as opposed to the counterculture candidate George McGovern of that year.
barriers are going up in preparation for a visit from America's most prominent citizen, President Richard Nixon. Next month, America votes for a new president, and Atlanta, if it were perfectly honest, would really prefer to vote for someone like George Wallace, just as it did 4 years ago, along with most of the other southern states. But this year, there's no Wallace, and so the South will vote solidly for Nixon and be glad to do so.
So there's a lot of similarities that it goes through in this video, including the fact that there was an inflation crisis at the time, which isn't quite the same as what we're going through, but it is a little bit comparable as far as economic hardship. And Nixon, I would say, was not a great economics president. I would say that President Nixon, who does get unfairly judged largely because of Watergate, which, let's be honest, it was illegal, but President Nixon was a better president than many of the ones that were before and after him. He was better than Ford and Carter. He was much better than Lyndon Johnson, because Nixon got us out of the Vietnam War. But the 1972 election had nothing to do with, Richard Nixon being a nice, cuddly guy. Richard Nixon was a very gruff, severe character, and people really, really, I would say, I'm not sure exactly why they were bringing themselves to vote for him, because I'm not sure, I don't think he's a person who, in his style and mannerisms, endeared himself to people. And therefore, I would say Trump is at an even bigger advantage. And I'd say that the Democrats this year, I would say they're going way beyond Nixon's opponent, George McGovern, who I would say, in fact, if you read his platform at the time, it was somewhat reasonable. I would say the abortion thing, I'm definitely not on board for, but I think the slogan was, the people who were making fun of George McGovern, was that he was the candidate for acid, abortions, and some other thing. It was the three A's. So yes, this was this is what I think is really going to happen. You're going to see this walkaway movement have a very profound effect on what's going on here, because you see here there's so many different types of people. This is there's an older woman. Here we have a lesbian couple. This one woman who is saying that she's had problems with this whole social distancing and the COVID stuff, so she's walked away. This is the walk away movement. This woman seems to be, I think she's Hispanic. Going back up to the top, so there's hundreds of thousands of stories like this. This is a gay guy. I'm saying this because I read through some of these earlier. There's a woman who's a biker in New York, autistic guy. This woman's simply a woman from Tennessee. So some of these people, they don't have necessarily very unusual stories, but they have stories that are about how, we just, we're very social. This guy isn't from here. He's from Ireland. But he says, I want to post here in order to support Donald Trump. So yeah, you have these people who are they're coming forward and they're saying emphatically that they're walking away from the Democratic Party, or they're walking into the Republican Party, and yeah, they are. Especially I see a number of groups that are very, very active in here. Now, some people have been taking notice of the Blexit movement. The black people who are moving out of the Democratic Party and moving into the Republican Party. I would say the walkaway movement is a little different from that. There are some black people in the walkaway movement, but the majority of people that I'm seeing are people who are either blue collar families, police officers, Hispanics, a lot of Hispanics for whatever reason. This obviously is a black gentleman who says he was a Crip back in the 80s. But I would say a lot of Hispanics, particularly Cubans, a lot of Asians, a lot of gay people, a lot of lesbians. It's very unusual, and the importance of why this is different. So remember, in 1972, Nixon was building his silent majority largely on the squares. The clip even said that a lot of the people who voted for him in the South were people who gladly voted for George Wallace 4 years earlier. this wave that could be happening, if it does happen, this could all just be a bunch of smoke and mirrors. But if it does happen, it's going to be not conservative. It's going to be largely people who I would say are socially liberal people who. That's exactly the point. That they're very social. They're very friendly. They're used to, I guess, having very civil conversations. They're not confrontational people. This guy, for example, is a Hispanic guy who has his own channel. He has some of these Spanish language topics that he puts out Spanish language videos on various topics, electoral topics. Um, this guy's from Britain, so forget that. He's not going to be voting. But yeah, there are a lot of people in this group, the Walkaway movement, which was founded in 2018, and it seems to be growing more and more. Especially, I would say the most important thing that people are not really focusing on is the Hispanic vote. You're not seeing an outpouring of fervor among Hispanics for Donald Trump. Now they did put out very I think even this week they put out a new documentary about ICE on Netflix, one that's very defamatory towards ICE and portrays them to be basically breaking down people's doors to drag away kids and separate families and all that. I still think that we're talking about a steady drip of voters from the Democrats to the Republicans in the Hispanic community, and people forget how important the Hispanics are, especially in some of the states out there like Colorado and even Iowa. Most people in the Midwest think that the big Hispanic vote share is in a state like California, but the fact is that there are many states over here. This woman, for example, says she is an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. So she lives in New York City, right? So we're seeing just this shift, especially among Cuban immigrants from the Caribbean. I would say Mexican immigrants are also to some degree, or the children of Mexican immigrants, people of Mexican descent, they're moving over for whatever reason. It could be just because, look, I would say people who have a steady family relationship, they tend to resist this turmoil and racial strife that's been going on. And therefore, the Hispanic and black people that you do see out there are generally people who might have less of a amicable relationship with their family. This is a transgender man in this photo. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. This is a transgender man and the wife, or no, it's not his wife. This is just, I guess I don't know who Danica Rome is, but you're seeing this just such a wide array of different people. And this guy, for example, this stuck out to me earlier. I said, so this guy, he only had 4 lines, but they're 4 lines that say a lot. He said, I used to be a conservative Democrat. Like, welfare isn't a career, but we can't let grandma starve. My party took off so far left my head spun. I'm not a Republican or Democrat. I'm an American with common sense. Trump 2020. So no, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are not the deciding factors right now. It is Trump and it is the Democratic Party's dancing with the devil. They're ingesting of the toxic cocktail. If you've been following this channel since 2016, you might remember I used to call it the toxic cocktail, which was a mix of corrupt politics at the top of the establishment and radical Fruit Loop politics at the bottom. It sort of becomes like a tornado, high on no pressure. So I do think that it's creating. Look, there might not have been a silent majority before, but it sure as hell is growing right now. And some of the reasons that you see fluctuating polls are that some of these people might like reduce their vocal support for Donald Trump at certain points, and then restore them later. This guy, for example, is a Muslim who is a big time supporter of Trump. Apparently, he became a Democrat because of George Bush. So yeah, this is a guy who talks about how the group's grown by tens of thousands of members just in 1 month. And that could be important, right? We don't know, but it could be. This walkaway movement was not as powerful back in 2018 when it started. It did become very noticeable, but statistically, we don't know if it really is going to have an effect. Other things I want to make a note of. Okay, so these are things that have been going on for the past few years. People are starting to notice, and this is out there, and you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Like this woman wrote an article saying, "My date with a MAGA lesbian forced me to confront my own prejudices." So this woman writes, "The lesbian community is often depicted as one of tolerance and acceptance with a dedication to liberation, and to an extent that is certainly true. But that ethos would seem to tacitly lead to the rejection of individuals who are seen as jeopardizing those values. I spoke to several other queer women about whether they'd date a Trump supporter, and all of them said no." Um, so so she says Robles, who is the Republican lesbian, is very public about her views. She made a YouTube video where she came out as a Trump supporter in 2016, and last year she got pepper sprayed at a Milo Yiannopoulos event, then sued the University of California. So I think I know who this might be. This is that woman.
I'm nervous. I have been thinking about making this video for a long time.
So yeah, you might remember this woman. I didn't realize it. I didn't even know she was a lesbian, but um, she did get pepper sprayed by an Antifa guy back in 2017 at a Milo event, and yeah, that was insane. I remember that. I don't know if I can find the video anymore though. That's what's so crazy. So this woman, she apparently went on a date with this lady, and I guess she was a little how should I say, perturbed by it. Would the experience like that and the visibility it brought about make dating harder? Generally speaking, Robles said, dating as a conservative woman sucks, but it's kind of funny and oddly enjoyable. People often fail to see the bigger picture of who she is as a person, she said. And if that's all someone thinks of you, how can you not think that's funny? Robles is unmoving in her support for Trump. I voted for the guy and I'm more outspoken about it, and think people are very unfair to his presidency. What is it about Trump that makes voting for him evil? She said. But when I brought up that Pence is a known homophobe who supports conversion therapy, Robles acknowledged that this was true. So I want to make this clear. Who cares if if Mike Pence is a person who supports conversion therapy, then how does that affect you? There's never been this, or to my knowledge, that there hasn't been for a long time at least, any sort of conversion therapy where they bundle you into a van and they try to make you, I guess, if you're a woman, watch episodes of, I don't know, like Mr. Universe or something, right? It just, in my experience, um, like I haven't seen any video evidence supporting, or any sort of documented evidence supporting this idea that people are being coerced into uh, this thing where they're forcing you to go to these things, these programs. She also wasn't totally happy with all of Trump's moves. He makes really poor administration decisions, unfortunately. I think there's a lot of really annoying people that like Trump and support everything he does. She said, I understand there's prototypes for the wall, but where's the funding for it? So that eventually did get um, resolved. Although she doesn't have a problem sharing her conservative side with others, Robles said it's frustrating that women become completely stuck on it. Why is it that when I go to a lesbian bar, the most interesting thing to say about me is that I'm a Trump supporter, Robles said, because that's the anecdotal thing people want to smash into my identity. And then she talks about Bitcoin. Another lesbian Trump supporter that I spoke with, Yvonne Parkinson, a 27-year-old EMT based in Las Vegas, echoed Robles' sentiments, but said her dating experiences have been far more negative. Backing Trump, Parkinson told me, is a part of her that many women are unable to get past. I've had women scream at me, walk away from me. I'm surprised none of them have slapped me. They get pretty worked up. So, and then this woman says that meeting Robles made me realize that my assumption that all queer women automatically lean left excluded women who fell outside of the category. I honestly didn't believe I'd ever have to ask a queer woman if they were conservative because I figured there was no way they could be one. Consequently, I set myself and any queer woman I encountered up for failure and limited our ability to talk to one another. So this is a reaction out of guilt, which is ridiculous. You don't have to feel guilty about something like that. You just discovered something new because here's what ends up happening. So this is the end of the article. She says, though I didn't continue to date Robles and disagree with her, obviously, talking with her reminded me of the importance of not assuming and also reassured me that it is possible to have a tolerant conversation with someone with opposing views. Had I let her conservative label prevent me from doing that, I would be guilty of perpetuating a stereotype and failing to create a space where a dialogue is very much needed. As much as I may abhor Trump, it would be hypocritical for me to disregard or shut Robles out based solely on her conservative views. But I still wouldn't date a Trump supporter. So in the end, she agrees that she would not date a Trump supporter. So um, that is something that people are going to have to reckon with. Now, here are some other factors I want to bring up. Jonathan Turley, who is a classical, liberal, left-wing libertarian, Keynesian libertarian, said this. Today I'm testifying in the Senate Judiciary Committee on, quote, the right of the people peaceably to assemble, protecting speech by stopping anarchist violence. The hearing will be held at 2:30 and will be broadcast on C-SPAN. My testimony is now posted. And then he continued. Recently, an alleged Antifa ringleader proclaimed the movement is winning. He is right. Threats against free speech have reached a critical mass in our schools to our streets. We can either act or remain passive pedestrians to what inevitably comes next. So this is John Turley. This is not a Trump conservative. This is what I'm talking about, a silent majority. So the conservatives are one part of it, but the other part of it are these people who would never have considered themselves conservatives, but now see that their entire existence is being threatened by who? By progressives, by the far left, by the Antifa type people. So he continues. He says, it often appears that Antifa is either the new Al Qaeda or the new, quote, Bigfoot. President Trump wants Antifa classified as a terrorist organization, while various Democratic politicians insist it is just a conservative phantom. It is neither. In The Usual Suspects, this is something that I've thought about too. I usually use the J. Edgar Hoover example where he denied that the mafia exists. But this is an equally, if not more, powerful analogy. So he says, in The Usual Suspects, if you remember that Kevin Spacey movie, the character Virgil described the unseen villain, Kaiser Soze. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Antifa does exist, and past weeks demonstrate just how adept it is at the Kaiser Soze of social unrest. And then he said, as I discuss my Senate testimony today, Antifa is no myth, but its most menacing role is not in specific protests, but the growing anti-free speech movement in the United States. The hearing ended with Senator Hirono walking out after confrontation with Senator Cruz over Antifa. In roughly 50 hearings, this was a first for me. I was not sure if I should turn off the lights when I left. this actually could be the pilot for Survivor. Capitol Hill, where senators vote themselves off the island. The good thing is that it meant I could make it home for the Cubs game, which coincidentally I actually did watch that Cubs game yesterday. I watched it the day before that. But yes, you're talking about a person like John Turley noticing that the Democrats have completely lost the plot on, and this is a guy who already recognized that with regards to the impeachment. So beyond the impeachment, beyond what they've been doing with regards to abusing power as Congress and going after the president for things that are not crimes, he's now seeing them abusing power by abridging free speech of the citizens. So that's another reason why there could be, and I think that there probably is, some sort of silent majority brewing. We don't know if it's if it's a real majority. If it's silent, it could be, I guess, it still could be swallowed up. There's a lot of different things that can happen. One last thing I want to note, as the night is getting very um, it's almost getting into morning right now, by the way. But there was a vote on Tuesday, which is yesterday, and Rasheda Tlaib appears to be on her way to a resounding victory in her district's primary for the Democratic nomination. And let's be clear, Rasheda Tlaib will, if she wins, which she probably will probably crush it in the general, because the Republicans have virtually no support in that district. But I want you to pay attention to something. Rasheda Tlaib earned only, get this, she earned 12,631 votes as of right now, with 3/4 of the votes reporting. So let's say that her total vote share gets up to 15,000 or 16,000 with this is the in-person plus the absentee votes that have come in already. Let's say that there's more absentee votes coming, so you're going to end up getting, I guess, 19,000 votes, 20,000 votes. How many voters are in Rasheda Tlaib's district? You have 705,000 people, and if you want to, I would estimate. It's difficult to find exact statistics for voters, but let's say that there's 350,000. Let's say it's about half of the population is the either the voting eligible or the registered voting population. So even then, Rasheda Tlaib, her vote, look at this. Only 12,000 at the moment. Let's say she gets 19,000. If she were to be, if she's a nominee, this is someone who's been nominated by less than 8% of her electorate, right? So if less than 8% of the electorate in one of the most important districts in Michigan for the presidential election actually came out to vote, it's a bad sign for the Democrats. And I'll show it to you. These are some of the other districts here. So in the 10th district, you have Lisa McClain, and I believe this is actually an open district. So let's look at the 10th district. So this one has about the same population, right? And it looks like that representative is retiring, but you have a turnout of, it looks like about 100,000 people voting within the Republican primary and about 30,000 voting in the Democratic primary. So there is an active and very passionate voting base in this 10th district, which is a solidly Republican district. And yet in Rasheda Tlaib's district, which is certainly more urban and more thought to be influential and very important for the Democrats to win, and to win by a large margin, and to bring the vote out in order to win Michigan. Yes, this is a woman who at the moment she only has 18 plus. So she only has about 25,000 people who have shown up to vote in that district. And they have roughly the same turnout at the moment. In the 9th district, okay, the 9th district, which is solidly Democratic, you had almost 50,000 Republicans turn out to vote against, Andy Levin, who's a he's from a very strong Democratic family. This is the 9th district. So I believe it was either his dad or his grandpa. Carl Levin was a longtime senator, I think, from Michigan, senator or whatever. The 9th district, so again, these are 705,000 people, and the Democrats are basically, they, Clinton. Let me see here. So Clinton won this district by 52% to 44% in 2016. I think it's possible that Trump could win this district this year, and that would be a huge disaster for the Democrats. In the 8th district, which was a Republican district in 2018, or the Republicans lost it in 2018 to Alyssa Slotkin, you also have about, give or take, 75,000 voters, or let me see here. Looks like somewhere in that range of 80,000. So in some of the more powerful or potent districts of the state of Michigan, you have the 13th district with Rasheda Taft, you have very, very low voter turnout. They can't have that happen. They are gonna be very pissed if they see very low voter turnout for this election. And I can tell that if you start to see Democratic districts like the 8th and 9th district fall, I don't think that the 9th district is going to fall, but certainly the 8th district, that could happen. That will be the evidence of a silent majority. It won't just be that Trump is winning, because remember, he won in 2016 by a very narrow margin. But if he's able to pull away some of these districts and run away with them and basically bludgeon the Democrats in some of their more traditional strongholds, yeah, that's something that you can call a silent majority. Please like, share, and subscribe. Glad you enjoyed the video. If you did, now put in the comments, what do you think about the silent majority? I want you to base it off people that you've actually talked to, people in your area, and what you hear on the street, at least if you are hearing from people on the street about it. You can also find me on BitChute, Minds.com, Subscribestar, Gab, Library, and Parler. And have a great Hump Day Wednesday.